I'm so excited to do this. We've started doing these success story webinars probably for about a year now. Um, it's always fun to do. And I've known Nicola for a while. And so right now we're at 118 writers signed in 4 years, which is crazy. We've had writer staff, we had projects produced. In fact, one of our writers, his project was being shot in Puerto Rico with Bruce Willis and Megan Fox right when COVID hit. So they were a week into it and then they had to stop. And it's been really awesome. I love working with writers. I love working with fun and normal writers. And Nicola is one of those things. I'm sorry. I can only imagine her face right now. But this is going to go for about an hour long. And what I like about these success story webinars is that hopefully it will kind of shed light to what they've done and maybe something that could inspire you. But one thing that's kind of consistent with all the success story webinars is the determination, the motivation, the perseverance. It's like that's something that everybody has that's been successful through us. And I know a lot of writers that are currently in our programs have those attributes. So it's so exciting to see them getting signed and eventually getting signed and just making executive contact. So let me bring up Nicola. Hi.
Hello.
This is such a clear, it's so clear. Cheers.
Cheers.
What are you drinking?
Rosé.
Oh, there's this delicious rosé in the refrigerator, but I didn't know how to open it because it wasn't open yet. I'm afraid of the ones that pop, so it gets me nervous.
I'm so glad to see that you dressed up for me today.
Oh, I'm wearing pants. What else do you want from me?
That counts. It counts. Look what I got on.
I know, I love that. Oh, that's so great.
It just fits. A little bit tight across the boob area, but it fits.
And I love that picture behind you, Mr. Sinatra.
Yes. Yes, it's by an artist called Steve Kaufman, who was the only guy who trained with Andy Warhol.
Andy Warhol.
Yes.
Was he an executive with us?
No,
I'm just kidding. Are you still in Los Angeles, or are you in?
I am.
Okay, cool.
Yes, still until July. Well, my house closes July 3rd and my flight is July 9th. So
I have to say something.
Yes.
Okay, so one thing that I feel like is very important, and I'm really pushing writers more and more and more, and we had some master webinars recently, and somebody said this recently, and you embody this, and it's a compliment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You are unapologetic about who you are. You are who you are, and you don't change for anybody. No. Would you say that's true?
Absolutely.
It's so amazing. And what I love about that is that you are such a, and it might sound so like obvious to people listening that aren't familiar with when I say this, is that when I say you're a human first and a writer second, you were always a human first.
I've been around the block a few times. I'm not a young 20-year-old trying to impress people. I think it's the difference.
I'm 20. 20, 30, actually.
Ish.
Well, tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, obviously you all know my name is Nicola, as Joey likes to pronounce it. I live in Los Angeles at the moment, but I'm shortly moving to South Carolina. Please don't judge me. Closer to family. But I'm keeping a base here in LA, so I'm going to be coming backwards and forwards a lot for work. I'm a journalist by trade. I worked for Rupert Murdoch's Red Tops on Fleet Street for many years, then moved here to LA when I was 20, God, this is so long ago, 26, and ran the world's largest celebrity news agency for 13 years. Then it was run by two Brit guys, and then they sold it to Bill Gates, his company Corbis, and it turned very American very quickly. And also the news market is just going downhill very fast compared to what it used to be. So I still freelance and I still do some journo work to pay the bills, but that's when I kind of transitioned into the screenwriting when I left the company.
My dream in life is to have a farm for rescue dogs and to be chased by the paparazzi.
I can organise the second one. No problem.
No
No problem.
That's what I want more than anything in the world.
But the sign of a good paparazzi, which the Americans are not. Sorry, all the Americans on the call. But the European paparazzi, you won't even know you've been photographed till it appears in the magazine.
No, I need to be known. I need people pushing me and shoving a camera in my face. That's what I want.
And yeah, all sorts.
And then tell us about your writing. What do you like to write?
I tend to write drama, both TV and features, normally with strong women as the main focus. I've tried writing comedy. I'm terrible at it. I just don't think the British humour translates onto the page. And my very first script actually was a very dark comedy. And I thought it was hilarious. And I sent it out, and all these American execs were like, "I just don't get it." And they were like, "And you've got all these Britishisms in there as well. You've got to take them out." And I was just like, "What a disaster!" So comedy is not my thing. I love to watch sci-fi, thrillers, all that kind of stuff. But drama for me is really where the space I like to write in.
And you really like true stories.
A lot of it is true stories. I think that's because of my journalist background. I come across a lot of stories that will make great screenplays. So I kind of gravitate towards true crime, true stories a lot. Yeah.
And by the way, I don't know if there were pre-prepared questions for this, but I have none. So I'm just going to, even if there was, I'm going to go tangential.
Yeah, Alex sent me a couple. There wasn't a lot on the list.
Okay, yeah. I was like, did I look? I didn't, whatever. How do you, because I think it's important for writers to start exploring and like finding true stories, finding an interesting locations and characters, real life characters. How do you go and find true stories?
Well, so a lot of it I come to through my journalist work. I'll either see something on the news or I'll read something in another, because a lot of my work I do for the UK and the European press. So I do find a lot of stuff in the American newspapers that then I can take and then redo for the UK market. So I do come across a lot of stories and also just book stuff that I'm reading. That, obviously, it's always great to have IP and if you can get the rights to the book. So, I just tend to find it. Yeah, just a lot through my journo work that, or a newspaper will call me up and say, we've signed this woman, can you go and interview her for us? And then it'll kind of progress from there.
How did your journalist writing influence your screenwriting?
God, it was very, very different making the transition. And it's helped in the fact that I can write really quickly because I'm so used to deadlines. If I used to work for Rupert Murdoch. So if a story came into the paper at 6 o'clock, if it wasn't written, subbed, and on the editor's desk by 7, you were fired. That's how quick a turnaround, So I'm a terrible procrastinator. So if you say to me, right, this is going to be done in 3 weeks, I'll spend 2.5 weeks making cups of tea, drinking rosé, watching Brit TV, turning BritBox on, and then in the last 4 days, I'll do it. Yeah, but if you said to me, you've got to write this in 2 days, I'll sit down and get it done. Yeah. So I still work with a journalist's mind on that side of it. But yeah, it did help in a way because I knew that you have to have that discipline where you have to sit down and do it every single day. And I'm used to, I write every day because that's my job. So it wasn't difficult for me to say, right, well, I'm going to spend 5 hours in the morning up to lunch writing, and then I'll do my journo work. So I know some people find it difficult to write every day, but I think once you get into that groove, it becomes a lot easier. And I definitely had that from the journalist job.
Well, go.
No, I was just going to say, but the actual style of writing, I mean, I actually went and I did an 18-month course to learn and to how to write a script, and it took 18 months. And then I did the masterclass on top. So I did about 4 years.
Oh, wow.
Studying, yeah. Before, until I actually felt happy that I was actually getting somewhere.
And kind of so many questions asked, but let's boil it down to how did you? So you found your manager relatively recently. Tell us about how that happened.
Well, basically, I've had 2 managers. Alex is my second manager. Yeah. And I met them both through Roadmap. So I first did a mentorship with Alex. You called me up and you were like, we're doing some new programs. Roadmap had just started. And you were like, do you want to try it? And I was like, sure, why not? In for a penny, in for a pound. So I did the mentorship, and I really liked Alex. And he's very not strict, but he tells it like it is. And some people don't like that, but I'm very used to that from being in the media world. So, you know, if you, he would say to me, "This is shit, redo it." And I'd be like, "Okay." But, you know, some people would be like, "Oh, he just said my stuff was shit." And I'm like, "Well, if it's shit, it is."
Yeah.
You know, but just tell me, you know, let's work on it and fix it. So I got on really well with Alex. And then in the meantime, I was doing Top Tier as well. And I met Adam, who was my first manager, Adam at the mailroom. And I did an audit pitch, a 3-minute pitch with Adam at the end of one of his sessions. And he really liked the script and called me up and said, you know, "Can I read the full script?" I said, "Fine, okay," sent it over. We went back and forward a couple of times. And then he said, "I'd like to option it. I'm not going to do full manager yet. Let's see what we can do with this." And I said, "Fine." And we went back and forth. And I left it about 6 months. Still kept in contact with him. And, you know, we would do like calls every couple of weeks. And then about 6 months in, I said, you know, "Do you mind, can I come and can we actually physically meet? We're both in LA. Can I show you some more stuff?" And he said, "Great, let's do it." And then from there, he signed me that afternoon.
Wow.
Well, he called me that afternoon. But remember, I was on the road to Vegas and I called you. I was on the way to see Cher.
Yeah.
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 And you were more excited about Cher than you were about me signing with Adam.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was with Adam for about 18 months. But in the meantime, I kept in contact with Alex a lot. We became Facebook friends. We would chat and stuff. And then, unfortunately, Adam has moved out of management. He's now running, he's working for the Film Commission down in Georgia, where he's from. So he's like, "Look, I'm really sorry. I'm having to drop all my clients, but I'll stay with you until you find a new manager." So just on the off chance, I'd been sending a script out, and it was making the semi-finals of a lot of contests, but not getting any further. It wasn't winning anything. So I messaged Alex and said, "Look, you know, as from a manager perspective, can you just look at this for me and just tell me how I can improve it to take it that one step further?"
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I appreciate your views, your notes and stuff. And he did that. And then he called me back. He's like, let's move forward. Let's manage. So it was really networking, keeping in contact with Alex. Even though I was with another manager, it was just, you know, making those phone calls, checking in, not every week, not every month, but just maintaining that relationship, which I think is really important for, you know, and even some of the other managers that I'd done through Top Tier, I still chat, message, you know. So, you know, you've got to, you don't know where you're going to be in 5 years' time.
Yeah, you don't.
You've got to keep those relationships going, even if you don't sign with them.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like that's exactly what I think is so important for writers to understand is like, I believe that writers should be obviously writing, but I don't believe in the term always be writing, because there's a point where you're like, okay, I've written, let me spend the time to like build relationships and keep relationships going. And I feel like that's what you've done so beautifully with Alex and even with Adam still and the other contacts as well. It's like you really do cultivate those relationships, and I think writers often forget that.
And I think people say, "Oh, like you've got to be in LA." I'm in LA, but I've never met Alex.
You've never met Alex in person?
No, he lives up the road. We've never met. It's so weird. We haven't been able to because the whole pandemic and all that kind of since I signed with him. But other, you know, you don't have to physically be in LA to maintain those relationships and keep them going. Everything's digital now. Everything's being done on Zoom. So it is a lot easier to, you know, to keep in contact with people. Even just to ping an email now, you know, what are you up to? You know, how are you getting on? You don't physically have to be. And it's great, you know, sometimes they do ask to meet you in person, but you don't absolutely 100% have to be in LA these days, unless you want to be in a writer's room.
True. And by the way, I don't think I said this at the beginning, but for any writer who wants to ask a question, you can put it in the Q&A box. What would you say do you feel like that the Zoom meetings will be more prevalent even after everything subsides?
I think so. I think it will. And because I think it's been proven now, you can work this way. You can work in a writer's room. I mean, I'm doing a project right now with Beth and Howard Stern. And we've brought in a showrunner and the producer, and everything's being done on Zoom. None of us have met. I mean, I've met the showrunner a couple of times while we've brainstormed. And moving forward, the showrunner's like, "I want to do it all on Zoom." He's like, "I don't need to meet you guys in person. I don't need to meet any of the other writers. We can do it all from Zoom." He's like, "I'm happy." He's like, "I'm in my house." He's like, "You send me the scripts, I'll go through them, then we can get on Zoom and chat, and I can give you notes that way." And it's perfect.
If I didn't have dogs, I don't think I would ever step outside my front porch. Ever. It's like, it's crazy.
I don't have dogs and I don't leave my house very often.
There we go. So one thing also about you that was always so exciting is that I know your work schedule is sometimes crazy,
Yeah.
and you would join a round table and you would have maybe not even slept the night before,
Yeah.
but you always kept the energy to a point where you, it was never known if you were tired or angry or whatever. How do you kind of block out those voices and keep the energy up?
I think you just have to. It's my journalist background, because, you know, if I've got to go and interview somebody and I've had a bad day, that's not their fault. I've still got to go and do my job and get the best story out of them. So you've got to project that professionalism and, you know, and make it fun and energetic. And I don't know, it's just something I'm just used to doing. I think it's, you know, it's difficult to explain. It's like, you've got to be professional every time you're on a Zoom, whether it's with you, whether it's with you,
No, whether
it's you know, with an executive, even another writer, even other writers, you know, down the line, they could become showrunners. They could be your boss in 5 years. So you've always got to maintain and be professional, be, you know, ask the right questions and just try and, like I say, form that relationship with people. That's the most important thing.
And speaking of that, is that you are so active in writing communities, or just even you have like such a strong following of writer allies. Like, do you feel like writers should really, you kind of already said this, but do you think writers should really be active in trying to make that camaraderie with other writers?
Absolutely. It's not just, it's when I first started doing this, my friends sphere and people were just other journalists, photographers, media people. I didn't know any screenwriters. So, and it was really difficult for me for a long time to actually tell anybody I was doing it, because I was kind of, it was like a dirty little secret. and I was like, oh yeah, I'm writing a movie, and all my media friends would be like, what? You know, so I think it's good to have that, so you know you've got that support, but also they give great notes, they give feedback. You know, and you, I mean, you know James Moore really well. He's a really good friend of mine, and I can call up James at any time, whether it's 11 o'clock at night or 9 o'clock in the morning, go, James, I've got 3 pages, can you read them? And he'll be like, straight away, and give me back notes. And it's the same, and he'll do the same for me. But I have a whole group of like that. You know, there's a whole group that I met through Screenwriting U that we still keep in contact with, and just branching out and just finding people in your genre as well really helps. And also through Top Tier, you know, you can post on the Top Tier page anytime, and anybody will step up and say, yeah, I want to, you know, I'll read that for you, let's do an exchange. And I think it's really important to have that bond with other writers.
Yeah. And so because I know you also write features and TV, but you have a lot of TV. Do you feel like it's important to have a Bible as well?
Yeah, absolutely. You can't do a TV project without doing a pitch Bible, for sure. You know, every time I've done TV, that's the first thing I've had an exec ask me after I've done the pitch, is like, do you have a full pitch Bible? Have you plotted out the first, you know, at least 2 to 3 seasons, which should be in your pitch Bible. So I think, you know, you've absolutely got to have, and you've got to think beyond the pilot. I was on the development team. I think you know Helen Sherrill over at Screenwriting U.
Yeah.
That's who I did my masters and stuff with. I was on their binge-worthy TV development team. It was supposed to be like an 8-week development. We ended up developing their course for 2 years.
Wow.
But we did such a deep delve into what creates a binge-worthy TV series. And I didn't even realize this going in, that stuff you put in the pilot will come to fruition in the season finale, the series finale. So you've got to know where your show is going. And we looked at a lot of shows. I mean, I didn't realize until going back and looking that the White Walkers in Game of Thrones, which don't technically, I think they show up in like season, is it 5 or 6? They're actually in the pilot.
Oh, how interesting.
Yeah, and I never, until we went back and we analysed it. And another thing that Hal made us do, which was a total mindfuck, excuse the language, was the TV show Billions. He made us watch in season 1 the pilot and the finale, and nothing in between. But you could see everything they'd laid in the pilot came to fruition.
Oh, that's really interesting.
So it's really interesting to see that. So before I'd just been writing pilots and just thinking pilot, and not thought beyond that scope of laying those breadcrumbs in the pilot and then plotting out at least 2 or 3 seasons so you know where it's going. So that's why I think you absolutely have to have the Bible. The exec wants to know. No exec is going to buy a show that they don't think is going to last at least 5 years.
What else do you think should be in a Bible?
I do basically. I haven't got one near me. I could have shown you guys. Basically, obviously a cover with a nice poster picture, and then basically your log line can be on one page with a nice image, and then you should really go into like the tone and what a brief description of what the show is about, and then I generally do the characters. If it's a main character, I do one page for the main character, and then I do 2 or 3 other characters on each page. And I try and limit that to 2 to 3 pages, and then the outline of the pilot, and then the seasons. And then if some people put their bio in on a last page, sometimes I do some. If the exec asks for it, I add it in, but generally I don't bother with my bio.
I really, thinking back at your Bibles, they were always so nicely done. It was just, the graphic was really nice. The graphics were really nice. One thing I'll ask now about Bibles, just about like pitches or general meetings, is the fact that you're from the UK and having execs with different like senses of humor, or just going into a meeting, whether it's Zoom or in person, where the exec is maybe not as warm or welcoming. Can you think of one example you were in a meeting or a pitch where you're like, oh wow, this exec's not giving me anything, and maybe how you like were able to get through it or turn it on his head?
I think sometimes you can't gel with everyone. Sometimes you'll go in and you'll hit it off straight away, and you know this is going to be a great meeting in the first 30 seconds. Other times you'll go in and you'll just have an exec and they'll just be like, yeah, and you just think this is going nowhere. So you just stay polite, you do your pitch, you ask if they want to see or hear anything else, and then you're like, and then you just don't try and what's the word I want to use? Don't waffle on. Just don't try and fill the space with stuff that doesn't matter. Just be concise, get to the point and go, thank you for your time, we're done. Sometimes you just know it's not going to work, and it's not. And so I'd say don't force it. You're not going to, if they're like that, you're not going to break through. They're not interested in your genre. They're not interested in your project. But just be polite to say, look, here's all my stuff. Maybe I can check in with you in a couple of weeks. So you're leaving the communication open so that you can chase up with them down the line if you need to. So you might have something for them in 6 months that you don't have now.
And what's your follow-up process with executives?
I try and leave it at least, if they've asked for a full script, I try and leave it at least 2 to 3 weeks, sometimes 4 weeks. And then I'll just send off an email just saying, hey, just checking in to see if you've had a chance to read the script. If you have, let me know. If not, I'll check in with you again in a couple of weeks. Most of the time they'll email back and say, haven't had a chance yet, it's top of the list, or I'm just going through it. Or sometimes it'll just be like, I've read it, sorry, no. And then I just do another follow-up email and go, that's great, thank you for taking the time to read it, I really appreciate it. Can I send you anything else in the future? And generally they're really open to it. They're like, yeah, that's no problem. So again, it's always about keeping that line of communication open, even if they say no.
It's so funny hearing you what a normal email is that you write, because our emails together are so crazy, are so insane. I'm like, oh,
I know.
I love that. Actually, so I'm going to go into a couple of questions. The first question is from our beloved James Moore.
I'm not answering it. I'm not answering any of his questions.
What is the most rewarding thing you found in your career at this level, and how has it changed you?
Ooh, I think basically I have a script right now that Adam was pushing, and we were doing quite well with it. But we were, and it placed really high in a few contests. But we were getting people interested, and then because it's a period piece, we were getting that it's too expensive, we can't make it. And then Alex has come on board and basically kicked everyone's ass, which has been amazing. And it's now at ICM. I have the actress Jennifer Finnegan attached, awesome. And her manager's John Carabino. And it's just that validation of, God, I can do it, because you do still wonder, you're a writer sitting alone on your own in your little dungeon every day, just typing it out on your own. Sometimes I meet James for coffee, but it's just you on your own. And just to have that, oh my God, people do like what I'm doing. And it does make you want to carry on. Because at one point I was like, I'm writing all this stuff and it's just going nowhere. What's the point? I'll just keep doing the journo work. And just to have somebody say they like, and I got a really nice email back from John Carabino. I mean, I don't know if a lot of people on the call know, but he's like one of the biggest managers in town. He manages Renée Zellweger, Chris Pine, Josh Duhamel. And he sent me this amazing email saying, I love your work. It's amazing. I've read 190 scripts this year. Yours is the only one I'm backing.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my God, it's, you know, it just having that one email just made it all worthwhile at the end of the day.
Can I go on a date with Chris Pine?
I asked the same thing. apparently he has a girlfriend.
Oh, they all do.
I know.
Let's talk about the relation, like the working relationship you have with Alex. What are some do's and don'ts that you would give a writer starting a working relationship with a rep?
God, it's really weird because my relationship with Alex is very different from the relationship that I had with Adam. Alex is much more hands-on. I would write something, send it to Adam. He'd maybe send me back a few notes. I'd write it, and then he'd send it out. Alex is much more hands-on. Like my Ode to Joy script, he's had me rewrite the first 5 pages, I think like 10 times now. And he's like, right now, it's like it's a really good script, but it's not an Oscar-winning script. If you do these rewrites, it's like I can put it in the hands of X, Y, and Z. And so if you can get this right, we can change the whole script basically. So he's very hands-on. He wants to look at stuff. He won't send it out unless he's happy with it. But I appreciate that. He's making me a 10 times better writer. You know, for everything I did with Screenwriting U is great because they teach you the basics of how to write a script, you know, how to format a script, all that kind of stuff, which is great, which I didn't know. But Alex has turned me from an okay writer to a good writer. And when I finish with him, I'll be a great writer. And that's down to him and him knowing his business and knowing what's selling and what's, you know, and so, you know, one of his clients, Tyler, just sold a script to Ron Howard.
Yeah, I saw that. That's awesome.
Yeah. So, you know, Alex, he's got the goods. He knows what he's doing. And he's very hands-on. And I like his openness and frankness. Like, you know, if I write he'll be like, this is shit, it's not working. I'm like, okay, fine. Let's brainstorm, let's find a way to do it. And he's really good on that side of it. And just, I mean, when did I sign with him? It's been a couple of months. But in that time, you know, he's got traction on House of the Rising Sun. He's making me redo Ode. And, you know, I think once Ode's finished, I think it'll be an amazing script. So I like working like that, but collaborating a lot with him.
What is when a writer is meeting reps to potentially be signed by? What are some things that writers should look for in a potential rep?
I think first of all, the fact that you get on, I think is a big thing. You know, you're going to be spending. It's not going to be like every day or every week, but you're going to be, you know, communicating with these guys a lot of the time. And so, you know, you've got to be able to for it to be a good fit. You know, if you don't gel to begin with, and they turn around and say to you, I'm not sending out your scripts because of X, Y, and Z. And you're like, well, I think it's fine. You know, it's not going to work for either of you. So I think you've really got to, you know, the main number one is that you guys are a fit together. But also look at their other clients. Look at what their other clients are doing, what they've sold as well. Even reach out to some of those other clients, which I did with both Adam and Alex. I reached out to their existing clients and said, how do you get on? How do you find them as a manager? You know, what are the good and bad things? So, you know, do your due diligence, you know, make sure that this is the right person for you, because otherwise in 6 months' time, you're just going to be looking for another manager again.
Yeah. And I feel like that's definitely like a strength that you have, probably because of your journalist background, is doing the research and asking the questions and really doing your background search for each executive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we have some questions coming in. Christina, I know this question's been here for a little bit. Sorry about that. You mentioned sending scripts to contests. Do you recommend that as a way for newish writers to get feedback on their work before it's ready for an attempt to option? And do you have suggestions for reputable contests to enter?
I mean, I've entered contests in the past, and it can be a good way to know at what level your script is at. If you send it into several contests and it's not placing anywhere, then you know it needs work. I don't get feedback from the contests. I use a company. She's a woman called Terry Zinner, and her company's a film writer. She's excellent coverage, and it's really reasonable as well. So I tend to get coverage before I even send it into a contest as well. But I mean, if you start placing your content and it starts placing, then you know you're on the right track. Because I do a lot of true life or real life, I can't enter into a lot of contests because my stuff's based on IP, and they won't accept stuff based on IP unless it's your own IP. Austin, out of the big three, is the only one that accepts scripts based on somebody else's IP. So, but Austin, My brain's gone blank today. It's too much rosé. Basically, Austin. What are the big three? Come on,
Nicole.
Austin. What's the third one?
Paige.
Paige. Yeah, that's it. So those are the top three that I would say definitely. And then screenplay. We screenplay do a lot of different ones that do specific genres. So that's always good to go up against something in your own genre, so against you know how well you're doing, because obviously with the big ones sometimes they don't have the separate categories. You're all looked in, so you're up against comedies, horror, thriller. So sometimes it's good to go up against something in your own genre. So We Screenplays has some good ones. I would suggest, if you're looking, look on Coverfly and Film Freeway. They have all the contests listed. They have what they cost, the deadlines, the submissions, when they announce everything. And you can go on there and you can check and look and see what, because it can get really expensive. If it's $45, $55, 60, so I would say pick three, either pick the top three or pick three that fit your screenplay the best, and try that out first.
Well, that's actually a really good question. So when you're looking at a competition or a screenwriting organization, a training or whatever, what do you look for as a writer to think about, am I going to put my time, energy, and money into this?
Yeah, I mean, for me, before I got the managers, I was always entering the top three because they're the most prestigious. And if you win those, they do put you on the radar of executives, managers, and they usually have really good judges as well. Sure Scripts, that's another one. That's a UK-based one, but that's a really good one as well. But I think if you're looking for a manager or an exec, or for it to be optioned, then you need to look at the more prestigious ones and the ones that offer options, meetings with managers, rather than just a cash prize. Cash is always great, don't get me wrong, but if you're looking to get ahead, you want ones that promise you that either fly you to LA to meet a manager, or they'll option the script. Those are the ones I would look for if you're trying to get on.
I saw a competition, we were all kind of laughing about it at Roadmap recently, where the winner got a Louisville bat.
What?
Like an actual bat, like a baseball bat. And I was like,
I mean, to hit execs with? I mean, what are you using it for? I mean,
to hit the owner of the competition, to be like, what the heck is this? This is from Julianne, who we also love. Hi, Julianne. I usually have her. She was so nice when she got signed. Julianne, you're coming up next for one of these. She gave us all these really beautiful painted cups. So I usually have her cup and next drinking coffee, but this is because you gave us peach vodka, Nicola, so I had to have.
I know. I gave you several bottles.
Yeah, you did give us several bottles. Yeah, I think this is the second one. Okay, this is Julianne. What do you want to be doing in 5 years? What do you think?
Retired.
Your look like retired in 5 years. Wow.
Sitting on a porch in my French vineyard.
That's amazing.
It is. It will be. When I want to be in 5 years, I don't know. I mean, I'll be honest, transparency. I'll be in my mid-50s by then. So, from the idea of,
what is your skin regimen? Tell me now.
No husband, no kids.
Okay, there we go.
There you go. On the inside as well. So I think for me, I mean, I'm open to the idea of becoming a showrunner and running my own show, but I'm like, at 55, do I want to be doing that for 16 hours a day when I could be? I was sitting on my porch in my French vineyard, and just so I could just write features and not have to, write the feature, sell it, move on to the next one. So I don't know. I mean, I want to still be writing, but how that takes me, I'm open to anything.
And how do you find inspiration? Like, we had a webinar recently with Robin Swycord, and she was like, she finds inspiration through photographs. What's your place to find inspiration?
I don't say it's photographs. Again, I think for me, it's finding that when I'm reading stuff, or I'm reading a book, or I'm reading, things online, and it's finding that initial story and going, oh my God, I could really make something out of this. And then for me, it's in the chase of it's tracking down that person, buying their life rights, being able to do that. I really enjoy doing that side of it as well because of my background, I think. So for me, the inspiration is the challenge of being able to get that person. Because if they turn around and say, no, I'm not giving you my life rights, or I'm not interested, then you can't do the script, basically.
Yeah.
So for me, it's the chase, it's the challenge. quite often as well.
What are some do's and don'ts for writers that want to get a true story?
Gosh, I've had my hand slapped so many times from Alex in the last couple of weeks because I keep finding period stuff. And he's like, it's a great story, but you are, this is his favourite mantra, you are no one.
Oh, God.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't have a show on TV. I haven't, I haven't had a feature made yet. So he's right. I'm not a name person, so I can't, I'm not Aaron Sorkin. I'm not, Shonda Rhimes. I can't rock up to Netflix and not have them make anything. I can't do, especially period pieces because they're so expensive. So he's like, it's a great story. Put it to the side. Wait until we've sold a few things, and then you can go back to doing what you love. It's like you need to do something contemporary, something what I can sell, something that's not a massive, $100 million budget. So I would say when you're looking for those kind of stories, find stuff that is not so much an intimate story, but it's going to be easy to do, not easy to do, but it's going to be relatively easy to film. It's going to be in the 10 to 20 million budget range. Even that's quite high. And find stuff that is, and especially now with the lockdown and the pandemic and the way everything's going to go back when we start back filming, nothing with massive crowds, a small cast, fewer locations. And you've got to think of that when you're reading a story or you're finding a story. And also, try and make it as contemporary as you can right now. And also go for slightly, older books as well. If you're looking at books, some of this that's just come out and is on the New York Times 100 bestseller list, you're probably not going to be able to afford to buy those rights. They're going to want thousands of dollars and thousands. So some, that might have been published 10 years ago, that's still relevant, is still a great story. You're more likely to have a chance of doing that. One because I got the rights to Ode to Joy. That was by a New York Times bestseller author, and I didn't realize when I started researching it, but he'd passed away. So I actually contacted his widow directly. I didn't go through the publishing company. I went to her, and she's in her 80s now, and she was the one. She's like, I'll call the publishing company. I'll tell them you can have the rights. I'm not going to charge you for it. I don't need any money. She was amazing, and she's been fantastic the whole way through the process. And I was like, look, when we get this made, we'll sort you out. She's like, I don't need money. I don't care. And so, that's a dream person to find, to get the rights from, which is incredibly rare. But if you're looking for those older style books and stories, it might be easier to, do a very, small option fee, or even a dollar option fee, and say to them, look, I'm a poor writer. I can't afford to pay you, even hundreds of dollars, let alone thousands. But, if I get this sold, I'll put it in the contract that you get paid separately. And then you can negotiate your own fee with the producer at that point. And so, sometimes a lot of people are open to that.
So traditionally, would a writer go to the publisher first?
It depends. I mean, I try and bypass the publisher because they're just a pain to deal with.
Yeah.
Generally, they're just a pain in the ass. And quite often they're like, oh yeah, the rights are available, but we want $5,000. I'm like, I don't have $5,000. Whereas if you can either find the email or the address or whatever of the person that wrote the book, you can write them a really nice email or a really nice letter, and hopefully connect on a human level, and bypass that red tape, that official, rights person or publicist, and go straight to them. And because at the end of the day, technically, what I would say is, well, look in the front of the book when you find a book, because sometimes the author will retain the copyright. Sometimes it resides with the publishing company, and it will say, see copyright and the author's name, or it will say the publishing company's name. If it's the publishing company's name, you're going to have to deal with them because they've retained the copyright. But more and more often these days, authors are retaining their own copyright. So it's easy to go to them direct, because they're going to be the one making the final decision, and you can get to them and hopefully, bend their ear before the publicist starts whispering in the other ear.
Why do you think that is, that authors are retaining their rights more?
Because they're not getting such massive advances like they used to. I mean, I did a book back in, I write, I don't do it so much now, but I tend to write celebrity and biographies and autobiographies, and I used to ghostwrite for a lot of people. I just don't do it anymore because it's just a monumental pain in the backside dealing with celebrities. But the first one I did, it was done in England. It was published by Virgin, and we got paid like $120,000 advance.
Wow!
I mean, she's a massive celebrity in England, which we split. Yeah, my Christian Bale book that I did, we didn't even get a tenth of that.
Wow.
So the publishing company is that they're paying less and less advances, even unless you're Michelle Obama or, you know, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. You're not going to get that massive, you know, you don't go into writing a book thinking I'm going to get $100,000 advance. The average today, and I know a lot of my friends are book writers still, advances, if you get 20,000 now, you're doing good. But generally now it's between like 5, 10, 15,000 for an advance.
And then you get the rest of the money when the book is done or when it starts selling copies.
That's it. So generally the way it works is you get paid your advance, and then you get paid it depends what deal you do, but I think for the Christian Bale book we got, I think it was 75 cents out of every dollar that sold. So, but quite often you have to pay the advance back before you start getting the royalties paid.
Oh, how interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, wow.
So even if you do get a massive advance, you're not likely to get any more money anyway, because you've got to pay that advance back. That's why it's called an advance.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, before you even get paid, start getting any royalties. So
that's interesting. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, again, so unless you're J.K. Rowling, or you're not going to make any money, big money, selling books these days.
Books, yeah. Oh, this is from Steve Morris. When you're trying to option a script, and you kind of talked about this a little bit before, but maybe even more specifically, how do you sell yourself to the author or rights holder?
It depends. I mean, when I got the rights from Celeste for the Ode to Joy, it's basically her husband Paul Pearsall was a very famous therapist, and he would treat people that had gone through cancer, brain tumors, Holocaust, and people with PTSD. So again, cancer survivors, Holocaust survivors, etc. So Moshe's story was just 2 pages in the book of a therapy session of how she survived in the concentration camp. And I'm British, I'm very reserved. I don't get emotional very often. But I came across the story when I was looking for something else, and it was on a blog, and I was just crying by the end of it. And when I wrote to Celeste, I was like, look, I read this story. It left me in tears. It moved me so much. I really think, Moshe's story needs to be told, especially in this time and what we're going through. And I just connected. Celeste was like, oh my God, that's my favorite story in the book too. I love it. So it was just chance for me that, but try and find something that, tell them what connects you to the story and why you're that person to write that particular story. It could be, you've got something in common with the person in the book or the story, or it's happened to you. Or you've really got to make an impassioned plea as to why you are that person. And it's kind of the same as, why you're that person to write this script. Quite often when I'm in pitch meetings, an executive is like, why are you qualified to write this story? And you've got to, have some connection to it. And that'll come through in your writing as well.
This is going to sound very strange.
Yes, go on. Everything that comes out of your mouth is strange. Go for it.
It's weird because I'm just finding myself sitting here while you're talking and smiling, and I realize that you always make me happy, and you're just always such a positive. You're just always so positive that it's just like it's contagious. Like it's just really. Well, maybe I shouldn't use the word contagious.
I should bottle it. We should sell it through Roadmap.
Yeah, we should. Yeah, that'd be a whole other division. How many hours a day do you write, or how many pages do you write a week?
It varies. It depends, because I still do the journalist work to pay the bills. So I do that at night. So which is great because it leaves me all day to write. But I usually start work around 6:37. Sometimes I'm working because of the time difference with London as well. I can be working through till 3, 4, 5 in the morning. It depends. Sometimes I'll finish at midnight. Sometimes it's 5. So it swings and roundabouts. So some days, if I'm in bed by 1, 2 in the morning, I can still get up at like 9, 10 and then write all day. But if I go to bed at 5, I ain't getting up before lunchtime. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So then I might get up and I might only do 2 or 3 hours of writing in the afternoon, then take a break and then go into, my actual work, because there's only so many hours I can physically sit at a computer because I have to do it for my main job. So, it's some days I'll get in 5, 6 hours worth of writing. Some days it's 2, but I make sure I write every single day. Even if I feel like it, I'll just sit there and I'll, even if I don't write on the script, I'll be looking for new ideas or writing pitches or, doing synopsis for an idea that I've come up with. Even if I'm not physically working on a script, I'll be doing something that's connected with it.
That's what I was going to say. It's like how long, by the way, look at my little doggy.
I know, he's so cute.
How long do you outline before you start writing?
I spent 3 months outlining Ode to Joy.
Oh, wow.
Oh, it's a Holocaust script. I didn't know much about that era. I totally fell into the research rabbit hole. I bought books. I mean, I watched Schindler's List. I watched The Pianist. I read the scripts. I bought history books. I even read Mein Kampf. That's how deep. Yeah,
Wow.
never want to do that again.
No.
No, it was. Ugh. But I really needed to know the ins and outs of how a concentration camp worked, what happened, and it was quite hardcore doing all that research. But I needed it to be able to make the script authentic. But there's other stuff that I've written. It's like the House of the Rising Sun. That's a period. It's set in New Orleans. I've never been to New Orleans, but I've set a script in New Orleans, so I had to do research for that. And it includes the Voodoo priestess Marie Laveau. So again, I had to do several, read through several books. I have some friends that live in New Orleans, so they were sending me stuff about Marie Laveau and whatever. And so again, I do at least, if I'm outlining a script, at least a month, 2 months, if not longer.
Wow, that's great. Yeah. I love that.
Well, the thing is, I use what's called the mini movie method, which was created by a guy called Chris Soth. And he basically says that you can break down any movie into 8 mini movies of 15 minutes.
Oh.
So this happens in the first 15, the second 15, blah, blah, blah. So I use that method. And so by the time I've done all my research and plotted it out, I've got so much stuff that I'm literally just filling in dialogue. When I actually come down to sit to actually write the script, once I've imported it into final draft, there's so much stuff in there that when I import that in, I've probably got 40, 50 pages from the outline.
Oh, that's so cool. I love that.
Because I've done so much outline, there's so much action, and just, a lot of it does get changed, but I've got such a big base to work from, rather than just going in. And I always make sure I have an outline. I'm not one of those people that can just start writing and see where it goes. I have to know where it's going to end up.
And the last 2 questions is, for one, since you do a lot of period pieces, what is one piece of advice you've gotten from anybody about pitching period pieces?
No, I haven't really got any advice from anyone except don't do it. People don't buy period, which is, it's kind of bullshit really, because you do see so many period things on TV. But again, those are from well-known writers and writers that have that, that are able to do that because of who they are. So I would say, if you are pitching a period piece, make sure you know it inside out, especially if it's historical, and you've got to get it absolutely right. But also, and I always say, when I was pitching House of the Rising Sun, I would always say to them, look, I'm aware it's a period piece, so I've minimized the amount of locations. Like 75% of it can be shot on a soundstage. You don't need to go out and film that much of it on location, which is going to cut the budget by a massive amount. Of having, it's easier to build a soundstage and film on that than it is to go out and change a whole street in Los Angeles to look like, the 1890s or the 1920s. So I always say to them, look, I'm really aware of the fact that it is periods. They are expensive, so I've tried to minimize the budget as much as I can when I'm writing it, and I have that in mind.
And then the last question is, since we do so much pitching at Roadmap, what are some do's and don'ts that you would tell your writer friends about pitching?
Know your story inside out. If you've written a script, you should know it by heart. I've seen so many pitches, and not just with Roadmap, but just generally, where you see somebody, they're like, "Hi, my name's so," and then they're looking like that, and they're reading off a piece of paper, and they're not making eye contact with the exec. You've got to engage the executive. You've got to make eye contact. Be aware, be prepared for questions. You might think you've included everything in your pitch, but the exec's going to have questions for you no matter what, and you've got to be able to answer them and know what you're talking about. But I say, you should know your story inside out. You should be able to pitch it, and also try and make it connect to you again, why you are that person to do it. When I was pitching 10 Days in the Madhouse, which is the Nellie Bly story, she was the first female journalist. She worked for Joseph Pulitzer, and she created stunt journalism, and she went into the Blackwell's female insane asylum in New York for 10 days undercover to expose corruption and murder. And basically, because of her, 100 years later, I was on the streets of London dressed as Queen Elizabeth I doing a stunt. So I always show the executive this picture. This is me. I had to do this because of Nellie Bly. So it made that connection to the story. And they were like, that's it. I was like, yeah, and I'm in like full Queen Elizabeth headdress, neck ruffle, boobs out in a corset, kind of, and they're like, oh my God. I was like, yeah, because of Nellie. That's why I love Nellie. She's an amazing, she's a female journalist. She was an inspiration for me personally. So it personalized the story. And if you can do that, it shows the executive how much passion you've got for it. And that always helps.
I would have fainted if we did this and you were in Queen Elizabeth garb.
If I had the costume in the house, I would have done it, honestly.
Or if we turned it on and I was in Queen Elizabeth garb. One of us had to be Queen Elizabeth. No, this is the last question. What is one of the most common questions, or maybe like a common question you got at the end of your pitch that you feel a writer should be prepared to answer?
What else have you got?
What else do you? Okay, there we go.
Every single time, even on an audit pitch, even when I've done 3-minute pitches, I've had the exec say, loved it, that's not for me, what else have you got? Or I loved it, have you got something similar, so I can see that that your writing's just not a fluke and you've got something that's in that genre as well. Every single time I've always been asked, what else have you got, or what else are you working on? Every single time.
I love that. And I think that's so important because, like I tell the writers, you're so much more than just the one script that you're pitching. You have to come in with like who you are and your other projects and being able to connect on a human level. Like all those things are so important. And that's so great that you just embody it all. Nicola,
Joey,
final remark. What is something that you just want to get off your chest or you feel is important for writers to know?
Oh, that's a tough one.
And can you do it in a Frank Sinatra accent?
No. And don't ask me to sing either because I'm completely tone deaf.
Okay,
my
fine.
singing voice is horrendous. I would just say love what you do. If you don't love it, why are you doing it? Mm-hmm. It's, if you just think, oh well, I want to do this because my friend's doing it, or I think it's going to don't do it for the money. But I've been doing this now for God, how many years? And I'm on the brink of selling stuff, but it's been long, it's been hard, but I'm not in it for the money. I'm in it because I love writing. It's part of my DNA. And even if I wasn't a journalist or I wasn't screenwriting, I'd be writing books or I'd be doing something connected with writing. It's what I love, and I think you've really got to love it. And if you do, that shines through in your writing as well. And I think execs can see if you've put that passion and that love into it as well.
Your DNA is 90%.
Rosé.
Perseverance and 10% rosé.
I'll take it.
Well, Nicola, thank you so much, and everybody,
thank you for having me, Joey.
Joining.
Thank you for everybody for tuning in.
Awesome. 90% rosé. That's what Juliette said. All right, bye, Nicola. Love you. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Joey. Bye.